Hey everyone, welcome to our gardening class. And hey, I'm so excited that you're here. Today we're going to be talking about how to grow fresh veggies in the winter when it's cold outside, when it's freezing. Some really practical stuff coming right up. But just before we jump in, I encourage you, if you haven't yet, to download the worksheet and the resources that go along with our class today. So you'll see a link on this page somewhere where you can click to download that worksheet. It's really helpful for taking notes. Plus there's a resource document in there and a winter garden cheat sheet, so you don't want to miss those. So go download those. Otherwise, let's jump right in. I'll pull up the slides here. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about how to use our CTP strategy to easily grow fresh veggies during the winter without breaking your pocketbook. We want to do this as easily as possible, right? And as low cost as possible. And tell you what, we're not here just to give you tools and techniques. We really want to help build your gardening library as well. So like I mentioned before, we've got the worksheet for you, the resource document, the winter cheat sheet, but I've got something else for you guys, another free gift. And this one is just for staying with me to the end of this presentation. So all of you that show your commitment to your garden, your excitement about the class, you stay with me to the end of this presentation, we're going to be giving you our 14-day microgreens challenge absolutely free. It's a $30 value, and it's a training that we take you through step-by-step instructional videos guiding you from seed to harvest, growing your own microgreens. And microgreens are so fantastic because they are packed full of nutrients. They have up to 40 times the nutrients of regular food, and they grow so quickly, within 14 days you can have your first harvest. So inside this training you get regular emails keeping you on track and telling you what to do each day. You enjoy your first harvest in only 14 days. Plus, there's a bonus where we teach you how to turn your microgreens into an automatic food growing machine, where I invented this growing tray that literally the microgreens water themselves. So you just plant them, seed them, make sure that they are germinating, and then you just leave them and come back 10 to 14 days later and you can harvest them without having to do any work in between. It's phenomenal. So just for sticking with us to the end, it's a little bonus here for you. You get the 14-day microgreens challenge for free, and at the end I'll tell you exactly how you can get it. Otherwise, let's jump right in, right? We got lots to cover here, talking about how you can grow your food in the winter. So here's a quick overview of our class. We're going to start out with C, which is diving into our simple formula to know what grows best in the winter versus the summer. And you'll learn what C stands for when we get to it there. And then second, we'll talk about T, because that's the second one in our little formula here. And this is where we're going to talk about the #1 critical factor for a successful winter garden. This is super important. If you don't get this right, you're just not going to have a good winter garden. So it's super critical. And then #3 is P, and we'll talk about the key to keeping plants alive in the cold and why wind is one of your worst enemies in the winter garden. And #4, got a bonus here for you, how to build your own winter quick hoops. You're not going to want to miss this and why they're so effective. I'm going to actually show you on video how to build your own quick hoop, a visual demonstration of how to do it. And it's one of the simplest and easiest ways to grow food in the winter. So here's my promise to you. I promise to share with you the exact strategies and resources that we use so you can use them right away in your garden. I promise to not just share how to grow fresh veggies in the winter, but also the #1 reason most winter gardens fail before they even begin. And that's, like I said, this is really super critical because there are certain things that you need in place to have a successful garden in the winter. And then I promise to be honest and not waste your time. All right, so is that a bold promise? You bet. And I'm planning to keep it as best as I can here for you. So like you can see, we're going to be covering a lot of information in here. I really encourage you to take notes as we go along. And now is a great time to silence any distractions. Turn off Facebook, shut your phone down, put it on silent. Turn off those distractions and really focus in. That's how you're going to get the most out of this class and out of the training here. I really want you to walk away with practical information that you can go and put to use in your garden right away. And just before we jump into the main training, real briefly, here's a little bit of my story, especially for those of you that are new to me. My name is Paul, and from a kid, my mom is an avid gardener. She loves to grow things, and so from a kid, she had us out in the gardens. You can see me with my sister there picking greens. And then later, as we grew in life, my dad ended up partnering with my Uncle John on Bountiful Blessings Farm. It's a beautiful, gorgeous farm in the rolling hills of Tennessee. That's my dad, Edwin, on the left, Uncle John on the right. And for years, they worked together on the farm. And I worked on the family farm in the family business for many years myself, where we grew a huge variety of vegetables, herbs, and berries. And we literally grew them all year round, and we would sell them out to the community. And it was a really great experience just being in the trenches, growing food. And it was really fun because the family was together, we were working together as my cousin, my nephew out helping pack produce boxes, and that was a really special experience. Then later, I branched off and started my own business, Born to Grow, teaching people how to grow their own food. And so mainly through online classes like this one, and we have an online membership. And so now my dad and mom, Edwin and Jennifer, work together with me and my wife, Natasha, and we teach people from around the world how to grow their own food in as easily and practical a way as possible, how to do it naturally in an organic way. And throughout our years, we've had the privilege of having the experience of growing on a larger scale, like on a farm, but we've also had the experience of growing on small scale, like on a backyard patio porch where you're just growing in containers, or a tower garden. You can see our microgreens growing on the right here. By the way, those are those special tray systems that are in the Microgreens Challenge, so if you stick with us to the end, you get that. And through it all, we've enjoyed the experience of harvesting beautiful food that just bursts with flavor from our gardens. But that's not to say that we haven't gone through the same struggles that you have as well. I mean, these are some worms that got on our greens a while back, and they literally just destroyed some of our greens. We understand what it feels like when you face some of these challenges, but thankfully we knew what to do, and we were able to deal with the worms organically. Our greens came back and thrived, and we were still able to get a bountiful harvest off of it. And so that's why we're here for you, because we want to share with you those same tips, those same techniques, where you don't have to go through all of the school of hard knocks learning the hard way, but you can learn what works and how to implement it in your garden and really come away satisfied with the harvest and the food that you get from your garden. And so over the years, Born to Grow has really had the privilege of being featured in multiple different locations and events. We've been on the Urban Farm University podcast, spoken at the Sustainable Preparedness Expo, other places like that. But what really feeds my heart is hearing back from those people who have been a part of our training, put it to practice, and really seen results from it. Like Roy Kim here, who wrote in and said there was a very noticeable difference in the amount of fruitage this year compared to last year. That's what really excites me and fuels my fire. Or James Hunt, who says, I put in an 8-foot by 4-foot garden with Russian kale, southern collards, some lettuce, and he said the kale and the collards did well all winter. I ate fresh greens all winter long. So I know that's why you're on here, because you want to eat fresh greens during the winter months and even possibly all winter long like James. So let's dive right in and talk about how you can use our CTP strategy to easily grow fresh veggies during the winter without breaking your pocketbook. And the very first part here is C, our simple formula to know what grows best in the winter versus the summer. So C stands for choice, and I want you to picture in your mind with me for a moment. Imagine climbing up a mountain, and as you climb up the mountain, the scenery changes. You know, at the bottom you have these big tall trees, it's very wooded. As you're climbing up, after a while you break out above the tree line, the plants get shorter, smaller. You finally climb up to the top of the mountain, maybe there's a little bit of snow up there, and you find this little flower that is growing by a little snow patch. And you ask yourself the question, why are there different plants that grow at the top of the mountain than grow at the bottom of the mountain? You're not going to find the big trees up at the top that you do at the bottom. And that's because each plant has its own environment where it thrives best. And the same thing happens in our season, going from summer to winter. There are certain plants that thrive in the cold, and there's certain plants that thrive in the warmth and the heat. So it's important when thinking about growing veggies in the cold of winter to choose veggies that do well in the cold.
Instead of fighting nature, let's work with it. We don't want to be working against nature. Let's work with it. It's going to be a lot less work, a lot less stress for you, and you're going to get a lot more abundant harvest. So as Elliot Coleman says in his book, The New Organic Grower, he says, the secret to success in lengthening the season without problems or failures is to find the point at which the extent of climate modification is in balance with the extra amount of time, money, and management skill involved in attaining it. So in short, we want to know how to grow veggies over the winter in a way that's as easy and cost-effective as possible. Otherwise, what are we really gaining, right? We want to do it in a way that doesn't take so much work and effort that it completely overwhelms all of our time without very much reward. We want it to be easy, but have an abundant harvest that you can be really satisfied with. And the first aspect of that is to grow veggies that naturally like the cold. And, you know, not everyone knows what those veggies are. So you may be listening to this and you'd be wondering, you know, what is that? You know, there was a story of one of our CSA members on Bountiful Blessings Farm. That was one of our subscribers who would get a box of produce every week or every 2 weeks. And this lady was a part of our winter CSA, I believe, and she got really disappointed that she wasn't getting green beans, I think it was, in her CSA box of produce. And, you know, I kind of chuckle because green beans don't do well growing in the winter. But she didn't know that. You know, she was expecting to get green beans in her winter produce. So maybe that's you. Or even if you do know most of the cold weather veggies, there may be a few new ones here that you might have never heard of before. So I've come up with a little saying that kind of helps split the seasons apart and makes it really simple to know what grows better in the winter, what grows better in the summer. And it goes like this: winter leaves and roots versus summer seeds and fruits. So, you know, it kind of rhymes a little bit. Winter leaves and roots, summer seeds and fruits. In the winter, most of the winter crops that you're going to grow that do well in the cold are those crops that you harvest the leaves. So think of your kale, your collards, your lettuce, spinach. Those plants that you harvest the leaves and eat the leaves, those tend to do better in the cold. And most of the root crops, not all of them, but most of the root crops, like your radishes, your turnips, and carrots, and beets. So those leaves and root vegetables do better in the cold. Most of your summer vegetables are the ones that you eat the seeds and the fruits off of. Tomatoes, cucumbers, green beans, eggplant. You know, you're actually harvesting the fruit and you're eating the fruit off of it. Now, there are some exceptions like potatoes or sweet potatoes where they are a root vegetable, but you grow them in the summer and then you store them over the winter. But for the most part, the winter crops are your leaves and your roots, and the summer ones are your seeds and your fruits. So tell you what, let's take this a step further and look at a list of cold-tolerant veggies that you can extend your season with. And we've divided them into 3 sections here: low cold tolerance, medium cold tolerance, high cold tolerance. And what that means is that those veggies in the low cold tolerance, they can handle a slight freeze and still do okay. Medium cold tolerance, they can handle it a little bit colder, a little bit of a harder freeze. High cold tolerance, they can handle pretty good freeze and still do okay. So in your low cold tolerance, you're going to find veggies like lettuce, chicory, that's like your radicchio, your endive, your escarole, broccoli, cauliflower, cilantro, parsley, radishes, celery, bok choy. Those are some examples of some lower cold tolerance veggies that you can grow. Now, broccoli and cauliflower are a little exception here. You're actually eating the flower of it, and the flower itself is pretty low cold tolerance. If your broccoli head freezes, it's going to go bad. So you really need to harvest those before they freeze, or make sure and keep them from freezing. And you can use the techniques that we're going to share here in this class to be able to do that, but that's just something to keep in mind. The medium cold tolerance are like Chinese cabbage, sorrel, rutabagas, kohlrabi, collards, kale, mâche. That's a really cool French green that can be eaten in salad. It has a little bit of a buttery taste, similar to spinach, which is the next one here. Beets, carrots, parsnips, dandelion greens, baby greens. These are a medium cold tolerance. And for example, carrots, we will leave our carrots out in the field all winter long and we'll be harvesting them all winter. That's what we did at Bountiful Blessings Farm. And they are some of the sweetest carrots you've ever had. It's amazing. The freeze and the cold outside actually sweetens up your winter vegetables and really makes them have the best flavor that you can ever imagine. You'll never taste a sweeter carrot than one that has been grown in the winter or in the cold environment. And then some of your high cold tolerance crops, these are ones that can really handle a pretty hard freeze, are your turnips, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage. Those can handle much harder freezes. Now, there is one type of turnip, hacker-eye turnip, and maybe there's other ones too, but hacker-eye turnips are a bit more of a lower cold tolerance, but some of your main normal turnips can be pretty high cold tolerance. So I want to just give you this list so you can see there's a lot that you can grow in the winter. And this isn't comprehensive. There are more plants than even this, but this is a list that you can take and start to use in your garden. And we've included this in the resource document, so make sure to go download that because then you'll have it there and you can easily look and see what you want to grow in your garden. So these are all great varieties to grow in the early spring, in the fall, or even straight through the winter. And in many places, you can grow straight through the winter with very simple techniques. And remember that your winter veggies are pretty much all of those leaf and root veggies, while your summer ones are mainly the fruits and seeds. So number one here is choice. And that means choose the vegetables that grow best in the winter. Number two here is tea. And here we're going to talk about the number one critical factor for a successful winter garden. So what is the single most critical factor for extending your season? Many people start thinking about different things like, how do I keep my plants warm? How can I have like a heated greenhouse or something like that? It's a great question. I think most of our minds turn to heat and or protection of our vegetables in some way. But tea here is actually for timing, because timing is the number one critical factor for having a winter garden in the first place. It's true, we want to protect our veggies from the cold, we want to protect them from the wind, that's all true, but before we get there, we need the veggies themselves to protect, don't we? If you don't have the plants, then what's the purpose of all of the protection? And perhaps one of the easiest things to get wrong is timing. Now, this is where I believe that most winter gardens fail before they even get started. I haven't done a study, I haven't done a survey around, but I think this is probably what kind of throws it in the towel or destroys most winter gardens, I should say, before they even get started. And that is that people don't recognize how soon they need to be starting their plants for their winter garden, and time slips away and pretty soon it's too late. So the first critical factor when it comes to season extension is the timing of when you plant your veggies, and timing can make all the difference from having a harvest to really having no harvest at all whatsoever. So what happens is as the weather gets cooler, and even more importantly, as your day length decreases, plants' growth slows down and will eventually come to a stop. Now, this is specifically as you're going up higher into the northern hemisphere, further down into the southern hemisphere. Obviously, as you get closer to the equator, your plant's growth is going to continue growing. Your day lengths are going to be longer throughout the whole year. But as a general rule, plants' growth slows down the most when days become 10 hours or shorter. So it's during this period in the winter that your plants won't actually be growing, or they'll be growing very slowly, and hence our purpose in season extension isn't so much to grow plants in the winter as it is to keep them alive through the winter. And I want you to catch that distinction. Instead of actually trying to grow them, you're simply trying to keep them alive through the winter, which means the critical factor then is to know when to plant your plants during the summer or fall so that they will be mature by the time winter sets in. Super critical here. I really want you to take this home because this is the number one critical factor for your winter garden. You got to plant them early enough so they'll be mature by the time that time sets in when your plants begin to slow down and stop growing. They're mature by that time, so then you just keep them alive throughout the winter and you can harvest them all winter long, or at least extend your season into the winter. So if you're wanting early crops in the spring, then you're simply dealing with the reverse. You know, plants' growth starts to speed up again like a bell curve, and you'll want to know when to plant them in the winter so that they will be at the right stage to harvest early in the spring. And here's a little visual graph just to put this in your mind so you can see it visually. you can see this little bell curve. On the left, you can see the number of days to harvest, and on the bottom, you can see the months, August, September, October, all the way through April. This is a little graph. It's adapted from the New Organic Grower, page 260 by Elliot Coleman, so I want to give Elliot credit here. And it's looking at lettuce and the difference of when you plant lettuce and how long it takes for that lettuce to mature. As time goes on, you notice with the bell curve, your day length is shortening and your number of days to harvest increases over that bell curve. So here's a little example, and this is an example with lettuce with the number of days to harvest. So for example, if you plant lettuce in August, say the middle of August, it's going to take, say 50 days to harvest, which brings you to what, September 27 or around there. If you plant them in the beginning of September, it could take you until November 10 to harvest, right? So your day length, it's going to take you a lot longer for your plant to mature. That you come to the beginning of October, and it's going to take you all the way until February 2 for those plants to be ready and mature for harvest. And then the flip side comes as it starts going down the other side. You start planting the beginning of January, and you can harvest January, February, March, April 12, beginning of February, you're harvesting April 20, so that time period is shortening again. Now, this is going to be different for different locations, all right? So this is just an example. It's not to say that this is right for your specific location, but I just want you to see that bell curve and how as the winter comes on, your plants slow down and it takes a longer period of time for them to reach maturity. So, like example, beginning of September is going to take you, say, 70 days till the beginning of November there for those plants to be mature. Whereas just 1 month later, if you plant in the beginning of October, it's going to take you 120 days for those plants to be ready to harvest and to be mature. So this is something to keep in mind when you're planting your veggies and why timing is so critical, to get those plants in ahead of time to make sure that they are mature by the time winter sets in. Some people get extremely detailed with sowing dates, even sowing in the evening versus the morning for different expected harvest times. That's just not practical for most home gardeners, right? And it's honestly not needed. Here's what Bountiful Blessings Farm did for a weekly lettuce harvest, and this was in Zone 7 in Tennessee. We would plant once a week through August, and then we would start planting twice a week in September through the third week in October. As that bell curve begins to spike, you increase the amount of planting times. This is for a continual harvest of lettuce because it's going to take a little longer for those ones to mature, and then we go back to planting once a week after that as well. So as you can see on the graph here, we'd plant once a week through August. As you hit the steep part of the bell curve, you start planting twice a week, and then you go back to planting once a week after that. Of course, that schedule would need to be adjusted to your growing climate, but it gives you an idea of how the winter can affect your plant's growth and how you need to plan and strategize ahead of time when you plant your plants. So what if you do get your plants planted late? Can you save them? If you're waiting too long and you still want to grow something for the winter, but it's a little late to get it planted. The truth is that the day length factor with your days getting shorter is probably the greater factor when it comes to your plant's growth slowing down going into the winter, but heat does play a role as well. Warmth does play a role as well. And so you can think of warmth as a little buffer to encourage your plants to grow a little faster before the days get too short. So if you have planted late, there is ways, and this quick hoop method that you're going to see here in just a little bit is one of those ways that you can boost the warmth a little bit, encourage your plants to grow a little bit faster, and it can save a little bit of time going into the winter, but it won't save you 100% of the time if you've waited too long. So definitely don't rely on heat to grow your veggies during the cold. It's much better, and it's going to save you time and energy to start your plants at the right time so that they will be mature as the winter sets in. So timing is the #1 critical factor for growing a winter garden. And the third one here is P. And here we're going to talk about the key to keeping your plants alive in the cold and why wind is one of your worst enemies. So Here, P stands for protection. You know, I know a lot of times our mind might think towards, in the winter, how do I keep my plants warm? How do I make sure that they don't get frozen and die? And warmth does play a factor, but because you're growing plants that already do well in the cold, that can handle a certain amount of a frost or a freeze, protection really is the key to keeping your plants alive in the cold. Some plants may need a little more protection than other plants do, but most of the time you don't have to be thinking about getting a space heater or getting a wood stove inside of a hoop house or something like that to grow a winter garden. The key is to have just enough protection, especially protection from the wind and the elements, to keep your plants alive. And the truth is, even with simple protections like we'll talk about here, it will keep your plants warmer at the same time. So all in all, when you boil it down, any kind of protection is simply changing or modifying the existing climate in some way, shape, or fashion. And honestly, this happens totally naturally in the natural world all the time. You have little frost pockets. That's where cold air sinks down to the bottom of the valley and it creates a little frost pocket, and it's colder down there where it might be warmer up at the top of the hill. At the farm, we could walk from the valley up to the top of our hill, and we could literally feel the temperature difference walking up the hill. So these microclimates happen in nature all the time. You're just creating your own microclimate by protecting your veggies. Another instance here is a south-facing slope warms up much faster in the winter and spring because the sun is shining more directly on it. That's in the northern hemisphere, of course. So that is in itself a little microclimate. Valleys tend to collect air, creating frost pockets, like I just said, while hilltops tend to stay warmer. All of these little environmental changes create little microclimates where different plants can thrive. And our goal in protection is to do this as simply and as economically as possible. Simplicity and economics then have to be balanced with reality, right? When it comes to actually keeping your plants alive. So I don't want you to go away and think that it doesn't take any work at all, but we're giving you the easiest way to do it that we know that is very effective as well. So the question is, how much protection do I really need for my plants? But first, let's note that protection has more to do with protection from the elements outside than it does from the cold itself. Now, your protection is going to keep your plants a little warmer, but it's really protecting from the elements. Warmth is a key factor, and some plants need more of it than others. We talked about those low cold tolerance, high cold tolerance plants. But at times, wind may actually cause the greater damage for your plants through desiccation of plant leaves or causing wind burn. And we've seen this firsthand. If your plants are out there in the wind, it can really actually literally burn the leaves if it's a really cold wind. So the more still the air is around a plant, the lower temperatures that plant will be able to handle. We actually had lettuce plants that were able to handle -5 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures under a quick hoop. And I forget if it was with one covering or two coverings, but it was able to withstand -5 degrees temperatures Fahrenheit because it had that protection from the wind. The air was very still around it. Some of the lettuce plants near the edges got hit harder, but the ones in the center were able to survive and still do well even at very cold temperatures. So there is hope for you. Now, when it gets that cold and we've got a crop that we really need, we're praying over those plants too. So the protection along with the blessing of God was able to protect those lettuce plants. But that gives you an example of what can happen when you have adequate protection for your plants. It's a lot like the wind chill that we feel when we go out on a cold day and the wind hits us. The wind makes it feel a lot colder, and your plants don't like that wind either. So practically, when it comes to creating a microclimate in your garden for growing through the winter, there are a couple things to consider. Number one, where you are growing, that can make a difference. Remember, on the southern slope, it's going to warm up faster. It's going to get more of the sunshine, at least in the northern hemisphere. If you can find a place that is naturally protected from wind, that's going to be helpful. But then actual protection from the wind and elements itself. And that protection is, believe it or not, it's going to keep your plants warmer, but even more importantly, it's going to protect your plants from the wind and the elements. So in the end, you may want to look at protecting your veggies from the wind before worrying as much about keeping them warm. Keep that in mind first. So there you have our CTP techniques. C is for choice, right? Choosing which plants do grow better in the winter versus in the summer. T is for timing, that number one critical factor, making sure your plants get planted early enough. And P is for protection. Of course, the next question is, how do you protect your veggies in as easy and simple a way as possible? And so here is your bonus, how to build your own winter quick hoops and why they're so effective. And in just a second, I'm going to show you a visual demonstration of exactly how to do this. But first, one of our favorite materials that we use for protecting our veggies is what we call row covers. And they're perhaps the overall best way to protect your veggies from the cold because they're very effective for the amount of cost and labor involved. It's kind of like a blanket. It's a simple, lightweight fabric cover that you can spread over your plants like a blanket. It's a spun-bonded fabric. Think of it kind of like a dryer sheet that you throw in your dryer with your clothes, except much larger. And some benefits of row covers is that they're lightweight. They allow light to pass through them. That's important. Your plants need light to grow. They're breathable. That's important. Your plants need fresh air. They protect from the wind, like we were just talking about, the importance of protection. They do increase the temperature because they act like a little blanket over your plants, and they are cost effective. So to use a row cover for protection in your garden, you could just throw it over your crops like a blanket, and some of the high cold tolerant crops, even maybe some of the medium cold tolerant crops, sometimes we do that. We just throw them over like a blanket. But it would be better, in most cases, to keep them up off of your plants somehow. You want a little bit of an air buffer. And you can use little wire hoops, like you see in the picture on the right here. You can kind of see those little wire hoops, and that just holds the row cover up off of the top of your plants. Or another way is to build quick hoops, which are like miniature little hoop houses. So let me show you this video of a visual demonstration of how you can make a quick hoop for yourself.
Okay, so let's talk about quick hoops. And you know, maybe you've never heard of a quick hoop before. So first question is, what is a quick hoop? And then what's the advantage of using a quick hoop? So first of all, with that first question, what is a quick hoop? A quick hoop basically is a very simple structure outside where you just form a hoop with a material like this plastic conduit pipe here. And you just form this hoop that you end up covering either with plastic or with a row cover, and your plants grow inside. So it's just this very miniature, just a very miniature hoop house, if you would. And the advantage of it, okay, the big advantage of it, really almost the only advantage of it, is that it's very inexpensive. It doesn't have a lot of capital that has to go into it. For instance, behind me here is a hoop house. And a hoop house like this one is about 30 by 50 feet, and that can cost upwards of $5,000 just to build a hoop house like that. Whereas putting up hoops like this over about the same space would be a 10th, maybe even a 20th of that cost. So you're talking about $250 to $500 to cover approximately about the same space, and I'm just throwing out numbers there. But that gives you a little ballpark of how this is a lot less expensive, but it does require a little bit more work when it comes down to the actual season, because you may need to end up uncovering them and covering them to allow for ventilation and other factors like that. Now, another thing is, you might be wondering, why can't I just take my row cover and just throw it over the plants? Why, you know, can't it just be a blanket that protects them? And with some vegetables, you can do that to a certain extent. Like here where we are in the zone 7, we can pretty much do that with cabbage and Brussels sprouts. They're pretty hardy. They're on that really hardy list. And so we'll let them go for a long time without any cover. And then when it starts getting pretty cold, when it gets down into the low 20s, we'll go out there and just throw a row cover over them, and it adds just enough protection. But there's a value in having the extra airspace underneath. Oh, try and get this where this doesn't flip out on me again. There's an added value in having that extra airspace to heat up, and it just acts like an insulator, keeping it warm inside there. All right, so let's get into some construction here, how we would set one of these up. I'm going to show you what I would consider one of the best ways for someone like yourself or just a simple home gardener to do this. You know, there's many different materials you can use to create the hoops like this. There's fiberglass rods that people use and just poke into the ground on one side and then on the other. Also, you can use metal conduit pipe, but then you'll need to end up purchasing a bender, which can be expensive as well. So what I suggest you start out using is a rigid PVC electrical conduit, and you want to make sure it's the electrical conduit that's gray and not white, because the white PVC pipe is going to end up breaking down in the sunlight. And you know, you can put plastic over these or row covers, and if you use plastic on the white PVC, it can break down the plastic as well. So you'll want to use a gray rigid PVC electrical conduit pipe, and this is a 10 foot length, so that's one material you'll need. And then for the construction of them, you'll need a tape measure, you'll need a hammer here for hammering in these rebar pieces. We've got pieces of rebar that we put in, and I'll tell you why we use these. And then you'll need sandbags and the row cover itself to cover it in the end. So the construction of it, what you do is you set out your tape measure along the area that you want to cover, and put these rebar posts in every 5 feet. So it's 5 feet between bows. And this will cover 2 30-inch beds plus a 1 foot walkway. So that's 5, basically 6 feet in between. So you'll measure that apart, 6 feet apart, and 5 feet apart going down the bows. And then you'll come along and simply hammer in these rebar pieces. And you want to hammer them in, you know, it's about 18 inches to 2 feet of rebar. And you want to put it into the ground until it's about 8 inches off of the ground. And you can use just a little piece of PVC pipe as a little measurer to do this. So just hammer it down to where the PVC pipe is. And what this is for is, of course, it gives something to put your PVC conduit onto. But another plus with this is that it forms a very nice structure, because as you place your PVC onto it, it keeps the edges of your structure going perpendicular to the ground. Whereas if you're using other materials, like if you were using a fiberglass and you were just poking it into the ground, it would end up coming out of the ground at an angle, and so you would have this hoop that was kind of angled going over instead of straight up and down on the sides. And so this ends up giving your plants near the edges more room to grow, and it's just maximizing that space inside. So it's, as you can see, it's very simple to set up here. And then once you have it set up, the next step is to get your row cover and put your row cover over it. A little tip with this is that we like to pull it tight from the ends first, and then come along and sandbag it on the sides. And these sandbags are super important, especially if you live in a place where it's windy. You know, here in Tennessee, we can get winds up to 50 miles per hour, and we pretty much need to use a sandbag on every bow of the quick hoop. Otherwise, the winds will just come off and blow the row covers away. So it's important to be able to get your row cover down tight and sandbag it down so that it stays. And then, you know, if it's a really hot day, you can come out and take the sandbags off and lift the row cover over, give it some ventilation. Or if you're coming to harvest, again, you just take the sandbags off, pull the row cover back, and you can harvest inside. And it makes for a great way that you can protect your veggies pretty simply, and for a pretty low cost when it comes down to it. You know, these these PVC conduit pipes are just, you know, $1.50 each or something like that. So it's a great way to do this. Now, another thing to note here is if you are living in an area where it's a lot colder and you're having to deal with working with a lot colder temperatures, something that you can do is well, first of all, you can use thicker row cover, or you can double up your row covers. You can use 2 row covers. But if you do that, you may want to be a little more proactive to only put that double row cover on during the coldest seasons. In fact, this last winter we had some broccoli that we wanted to take just a little further, and so we decided to double row cover it. But just to do that on the nights when it was going to get really cold. So we went out and we'd pull over a second row cover, and it helped keep our broccoli a lot longer into the season. So that's something that you can do. Another thing is you can use plastic instead of the row cover, and it'll probably give you more protection in the end, but it will end up probably being a little bit more labor intensive as well, because you'll definitely, you know, it doesn't have the breathability of the row cover fabric, and so you'll definitely need to be coming in and pulling it back and letting it air out inside. So that's a quick overview of setting up quick hoops, which I would really highly suggest as one of the best ways that for a very low cost, you can add quite a bit of protection to your garden.
So there you go, how you can make a quick hoop for yourself in your garden and extend your season. And all in all, row covers probably give the best balance between cost efficiency, protection, and labor in your garden. Now, you still may be wondering about that question, you know, how much protection do I need for my garden and for the things that I'm wanting to grow? And that really is going to depend on where you live, the zone, agriculture zone that you're growing in, how cold it gets in the winter, and all of that. So I'll just give you an example with us. When we were growing on Bountiful Blessings Farm, it was a zone 7, and it would still get pretty cold in the winter. And for most of the medium cold tolerant crops, we could put them out in a quick hoop like these that we just showed you and cover them with one layer of 1 ounce row cover. Now, when it would get really cold, like down into the 20s and even lower into the teens and single digits, we would usually go out and pull a second row cover over them at night when it got really cold. So they would have 2 layers of protection. But for the lower cold tolerant crops, it was really ideal to go up to the next level. You know, the next step is to have a high tunnel or a caterpillar tunnel or a hoop house, which is a larger structure covered with plastic. And with those, then you have the opportunity of having that larger cover over it, and then you can even use row covers within the hoop house or caterpillar tunnel to add additional layers. So you might have 2, sometimes even 3 layers over your vegetables, including the caterpillar tunnel or high tunnel. So hopefully that gives you a little idea of about how much protection you might need for your area. But regardless of where you are, you can use these quick hoops to definitely extend your season into the winter or start earlier in the spring, either way. And in many places, you can use them to grow even straight through the winter. And what's neat about the quick hoops is it's something that you can go and put to use in your garden right away. And like I said at the beginning, one of my favorite things, the thing that really encourages me the most is when our gardening members and the people that have gone through our training come back and share how it made a difference for them, like Laurie here, who says, we were pretty excited about our first December harvest thanks to using the quick hoops that Paul talks about in the course. And that can happen for you too. Believe it or not, you can be harvesting veggies further into the winter, maybe even straight through the winter using some of these simple techniques. James Hunt says, been gardening for about 30 years. I still learn things from Paul and his dad. The kale and the collards did well all winter. I ate fresh greens all winter long. That's what I want you to experience here. And here's a picture that James sent in of his little quick hoop that he built where he was harvesting the fresh greens all winter long there. And the exciting thing is that our members have not only had success with extending their season, like these members are sharing here, but even in their harvest throughout the year. Like Joelle, who said, so much produce. I want to say that this season might be the most ever thanks to the new methods that I've been using from these gardening classes. And Laurie says, though I consider myself to be a somewhat experienced gardener, I cannot even tell you how much I've learned already from the gardening courses. And here's a picture of Laurie's harvest. Look at this, today's garden haul. I think it's safe to say I'll be snapping beans tomorrow. Just amazing, like green beans, tomatoes, eggplant. This is what excites me. When I see this type of success, and when, you know, my goal is for you to experience satisfaction from your garden, satisfaction with the harvest, not only in the winter, but all year long. So I know that you're here because you want a fresh harvest from your garden all winter long, right? Or to at least extend your season into the winter months so that you don't have to be purchasing bland greens from the grocery store. You want to be able to harvest them yourself. You're here because you want to know a tried and true way to protect your veggies in the winter without breaking your pocketbook, like using the quick hoop method that we just talked about, right? You don't want to spend the time and the money trying out 10 different methods to figure out which one works best. You want to learn what works best and go straight for it. At least, that's what I would want to do in my garden. Like James, who harvested his fresh greens all winter long using his little quick hoop. And could we say that you're here because you want a garden that satisfies? A garden that satisfies your taste buds, that taste amazing, that bursts in your mouth with flavor. A garden that satisfies your eyes, that's beautiful, that's gorgeous to look at, that satisfies your heart with an abundant harvest. You come away saying, that is good. So let me tell you what I'm really excited about. But first, imagine with me a moment. Let's say you're growing your garden and it's just not producing, right? You're not getting the harvest that you want. You want something better. Maybe the bugs are taking over. Your plants are stressed, which makes you stressed. You got these little caterpillar worms. They're eating them up. You're getting disease. You're getting aphids. Your plants are turning yellow. They're getting stressed. It's making you stressed. And in the end, you're not truly satisfied with your garden. You're not satisfied with the way your garden looks. You're not satisfied with the yield you're getting from your garden. You can't step back and say, that's good. That feeling like when you have just finished cleaning your house and everything is sparkly clean and you step back and you look at it and you're like, that is so nice. That's what you want to experience from your garden. That's what I want you to experience from your garden. To be able to step back at the end of the season, at the end of the day and say, that's beautiful. The satisfaction of a wonderful harvest from your garden. But perhaps that's not what you're experiencing. You've got the bugs, you've got the diseases, and you're going to Google and you're typing in, all of these searches of how do I deal with Japanese beetles? How can I do all of these things? You have all of these different voices speaking to you, telling you all of these different things that you should be doing for your garden. You're not really sure which one to follow, which one really works. You don't want to try it all and do everything the hard way and learn the hard way. You wish you could know what worked right from the start, right? And it can be pretty overwhelming sometimes. I can totally understand. There's a lot of voices out there. But I want to ask you a question. When it comes down to your garden, you're having this experience, you want a satisfying garden that really satisfies you. And the question is this: what is it that you're missing? What is it that's missing to keep you from having that satisfaction in your garden? And go ahead and help me out here. I know you can't just, completely respond, but I want you to think in your mind, what's going wrong? Why aren't you fully satisfied with your garden? Number one, is it a lack of desire? Is it because you don't want to have a satisfying garden? I don't think so. I mean, we all want to have that satisfaction of a wonderful harvest, right? Is it because you haven't tried? Probably not for most of you. Most of you have gone out, you've planted things. That's why you're experiencing troubles in the first place. You might have some of you may have never gardened before, but most of you have tried, so that's probably not the reason. Is it because you don't have time for your garden? Well, maybe that could be, but what if there were ways and tools to do things faster and easier? Then would time be an excuse then, right? Not really, if there was better and easier ways. So what is it that is really missing in your garden? Well, let's step back and look at it again together. So you're facing these challenges, you're busy, your plants are getting sick and stressed, bugs are eating your veggies, the weeds are taking over, like you can see in the picture here. Those are the challenges that are standing between you and satisfaction. But let me ask you a question. What if you had an opportunity to have a mentor come by your side who knows the tricks and the tools and the techniques and the skills to grow a vibrant garden that is really satisfying? They've walked that path before, and they walk you step by step through your gardening season, showing you how to start the little starts that will thrive, walking you through taking a soil test and making sure your plants have the nutrients they will need, showing you the tools that will cut your labor in half or less, organic solutions for dealing with pests, etc. Where, just like with the example of the quick hoops, instead of trying out 10 different solutions for yourself and not truly being satisfied with the results, or maybe finding one that works, okay, what if instead you could learn what really works and put it to use the very first time? And on top of that, what if you had a community of other gardeners where you could share your challenges at any time and hear back from other gardeners and what's working for them? What kind of a difference do you think that would make for you? So let's go back to that question, what is standing between you and real satisfaction in your garden where you can step back at the end of the day and say, that's good. What is it that's standing between you and that? Real mentorship, right? Knowledge, having that knowledge, someone showing you step by step how to do it. I mean, how many of you think that without a mentor, without the knowledge, without a step-by-step system, you could go out and grow this amazing, awesome garden right away? That's just not the way things happen, right? Without the knowledge, you usually go through the school of hard knocks. That's just the way it happens in life, unfortunately. But what if you had that mentor who has been there before, who could not only teach you the knowledge, but could show you a step-by-step way to garden that took less work, where your plants thrived and you weren't fighting bugs all the time. You had that community supporting you and each other. How many of you think that at the end of the season you could step back and say, that's good. Or, that was good. I had an awesome harvest. A lot more likely, right? A lot more likely for that to happen. So here's what I'm excited about. See, we've literally had people from around the world who have had good success with our garden training. And if you want that kind of help and those kind of results, then let me introduce you to our Born to Grow Pro membership, where we literally walk you through our gardening game plan to grow a nutrient-dense organic garden that will not only save you a ton of time and could easily double your harvest, but also keep you and your family healthy, and you could experience that satisfaction. And guess what? I'm looking for case studies of people who would like to do just that, who would like to double their harvest, who would like to build up their soil, keep the bugs away naturally, experience a garden that is really satisfying, extend their garden into the winter months, grow all year round. People who will walk through our Gardening to Abundance game plan, implement it in their garden, and would like to see massive results. So if that's the experience that you'd like to have in your garden, then here are some of the benefits that our members get when they join our Born to Grow gardening family. Number one, you get instant access to our entire garden training library with over 160 teaching and demonstration videos. And these include our master classes, leading you step by step through the whole garden process, and our home gardening course, which goes into a lot more depth. It's our flagship gardening course that really dives deep into the topics, starting from planting your garden all the way down through weeding, cultivating, trellising, harvesting, building up your soil, extending your season into the winter. You also get access to our health spotlights. These are really cool little spotlights that my wife Natasha does that highlight a little vegetable from the garden and give a little fresh garden recipe as well. Live monthly meetings with my dad and myself where we give a training segment, open it up for question and answers. Custom garden map checklist. This is something that is coming soon that's going to really take a lot of work out of your garden, giving you a plan for your garden and the plants that you want to grow. And our bonus private Facebook group access where you really have that community. So let's briefly dive down and look at each one of these sections and how it can really benefit you and your garden. First of all, starting off with the master classes and our home gardening course. The master classes, in short, are where I've taken our main training and broken it down into short little videos that guide you through the key things that you need to know to be able to grow a successful garden. I realize that many people are busy, they don't have a lot of time, and so the masterclasses are excellent for the busy lifestyle because you got a short video, usually around 5 to 10 minutes long, that really gives you the main things that you need to know and guides you through our gardening game plan, where we take you through each level of your garden, starting with ignition, where it really sets the foundation of your garden to have a successful garden, talking about planning your garden, building up a healthy soil, getting a soil test for your garden, moves into launch, where you learn how to prepare your garden beds without breaking your back, how to grow starts to have an almost sure harvest, how to keep your soil healthy over time. Moving on into grow, where you'll discover exactly how to care for your plants, how to keep the bugs off of them in the natural organic ways, how to help them thrive, and to harvest your veggies, and then finally on into extend, where you'll discover exactly what to do to extend your season or to be harvesting fresh veggies straight through the winter. And then for those that want to dive deeper and go even more deep into the training, you'll have online access to our flagship home gardening course that has much longer training sessions with worksheets that go along with them, and it's much more of a robust course going into more detail and depth into each of the stages of your gardening. So as the training leads you step by step through planning your garden, building up and improving your soil, keeping your garden weed free without spending hours on your knees picking weeds and more, you'll be able to grow vibrant, healthy plants that are naturally resistant to bugs and diseases. You'll find it much easier to grow an abundance of nutrient-dense veggies that burst in your mouth with flavor and without being stressed or overwhelmed doing with it. And our goal is for you to walk away truly satisfied with the harvest and the garden that you have grown. So you'll have access to the master classes and the home gardening course. And then second, you have access to the health spotlights. And these health spotlights are really great. My wife, Natasha, takes a vegetable that you could be growing in your garden and brings it into the kitchen, shares some nutrient insights from it, shares a little recipe that you can easily make with it, and they just taste amazing. Like Michael says here, very well done video. I'm going to get some of the sweet potatoes we grew and make some fries this afternoon. Thank you. And I gotta tell you, those sweet potato fries tasted amazing. So now that you have simple recipes to prepare and delicious dishes from your garden produce, you'll be able to prepare meals that taste amazing from your garden that your family's going to love, and that means that everyone's going to be able to enjoy the garden more, right? You'll be on your way to a healthier, happier life together. So you'll have the master classes and home gardening course, the health spotlights, and then plus you'll also have access to our live monthly meetings with question and answer times together. These are so much fun. This is where my dad and I get on live, and all of our members can come on and join us. There's a chat room where you can chat with each other. We do a little training segment for you and then open it up for question and answers. And you even get to see little updates from our garden, so you get to see what's going on with us. And in one of these live meetings, Amy says, this membership is so worth it. And my dad is answering, yes, Amy, looking forward to your questions. So now that you have live access to us once a month during our live meetings, you'll be able to get your garden questions answered without having to figure it out on your own, which means you'll be able to save the stress of sorting through different people's ideas. You'll be able to learn what actually works, and you'll be on your way to growing an abundant harvest much faster. So you have the master classes, home gardening course, the health spotlights, live monthly meetings and question and answer times, but then you're also gonna get access to our custom garden map checklist. Now these checklists are coming soon, they're still under creation, but what it's going to be is where you basically have a calendar that tells you exactly when you should be planting different vegetables for your garden based off of your local location. So it saves you the time of having to figure that all out yourself. You can just go in, and in fact, we already have some little garden calendar plans already made out for a sample garden plan that we have in there, so you can put those to use right away, but we want to make them a little bigger and better for you as well. So you get our master classes, home gardening course, the health spotlights, live monthly meetings, custom garden map checklists, plus our bonus Facebook group access. And this is really where the fun happens all month long. Our members come together, they share pictures of their harvests, struggles that they're having in their garden, maybe a disease issue, post some pictures. We're able to interact with them. My dad, myself are in there. We're answering people's questions. And I really love it because here we have interaction right with you, and we get to see what's happening in your gardens. You can see these harvest pictures. This is from Melissa, harvested all these cucumbers, peppers, tomatoes, incredible. Here's more harvest pictures from our different members in the Facebook group. Jan has a really neat story. She had never gardened before and posted some of her first harvests on here. She says, since I've never grown anything, it makes me really happy. She's got this little batch of green beans. Later she was pickling cucumbers for the very first time from her own garden. She says, now that I know how to do this, I'll probably make more next time so I can share them with friends. And look, more harvests. She grew beets and corn and zucchini and okra and green beans, you know, for the very first time. She says, I've never done a garden before, found the idea a little overwhelming, then I found Born to Grow. I've been given a roadmap to successful gardening. I've really become a gardener thanks to Born to Grow. So now that you're a part of our private Facebook group, you'll be able to connect with other gardeners all month long, ask questions, share your joys and harvest picks, which means everyone will be able to help each other faster and easier, and you'll be on your way to your best garden ever while making new friends at the same time. So, quick little review here. You got the master classes, health spotlights, live monthly meetings, custom garden map checklists coming soon, bonus private Facebook group access. But we'd like to do something special over the top for those that are ready to take action fast in their garden. So I've got a special bonus just for those of you that joined our class period today. And that is our bonus garden launch workshop. This is a 5-day workshop that we did with real students who paid $150 live. You'll be able to get the recordings, so I valued it at $100. You get it free as a fast action bonus, where we walked people step by step through how to put together a complete plan for your gardening season, how to decide which varieties of veggies to grow, and we gave some of our favorite varieties in there as well. How to order your seeds so you'll be all set to plant when the time comes, and how to put together a complete planting calendar so you'll never have to worry about what you need to do each week. So for those of you that are ready to take action, you get this free as well. So when you join our Born to Grow Pro Member Gardening family, once again, you get instant access to our entire gardening training library with over 160 teaching and demonstration videos. And honestly, that's over $500 value easily, which includes our master classes, our home gardening course, the health spotlights, the live monthly meetings with question and answer times, the custom garden map checklists coming soon, the bonus private Facebook group access, and our bonus garden launch workshop, an additional $100 value for those fast action takers. And by now you may be wondering, well, how can I join, right? So here's how it works. We want to do something special for each one of you that have joined our winter gardening class. And so for a limited time, you can get 7 days free inside the membership. 7 days absolutely free. We don't want money to stand in the way of you gaining access to this training and the benefits from the training. So we want you to be able to jump in, check it out for yourself, see that it really is the right fit for you. So you get a 7-day free trial, and then you'll automatically continue for just $15 a month, or you can get over 30% off if you sign up at the yearly rate of $120 a year, which is basically the same as getting 4 months free. And that discount is only available for our class members. But that discount isn't available on our main website. It's just for those who have joined our gardening classes. Hey, something special that we want to do for you. And it's very easy to join. You just click the link on this page. There'll be a link that pops up that says something like start now for free. And you click it, it'll take you over to another page, has more information about the membership, and there'll be a button that says start now for free, and it'll take you to where you can sign up. And don't forget, if you sign up through the link during this class period, you'll get that extra fast action bonus with our garden launch workshop, another $100 value just for our fast action takers here. And to top it off, we want to take it up to the next level and back this up with our 1 year no fail 100% money back guarantee. I understand what an investment it is for you, and we want to back that up with your money. And so you might be wondering, how in the world can you do this? Here's how it works. We back it up 100% for your first year. And so for anyone who goes through our garden training and implements it in their garden and does not see a significant result in your garden, you're not satisfied with the increase of harvest, it didn't help you reduce the amount of labor, the stress in your garden, you didn't see results from the training, then you can contact us and just let us know. So shoot us an email and show us some pictures showing that you actually did put the training into practice. And hey, if it didn't work for you, then it was a waste of your time, and we will give you your money, 100% of your money back, guaranteed, no questions asked. But we are so confident that if you go through the training and you follow the step-by-step garden plan that we outlined for you there, it's going to help you in your garden. It's going to benefit your garden. You're going to end up spending less time. It'll be less work. You'll have less pests and disease problems and better, more bountiful harvests that really satisfy. So we are backing it up 100% with our 1 year no fail 100% money back guarantee. And some of you may be wondering, you know, what's the cancellation policy? Hey, we don't believe in small print. It's your membership is a month-to-month commitment. You can cancel anytime you want. You're not locked into any kind of contract or anything like that. It is completely up to you, and you can cancel at any time that you want. So now is the time, my friends, to take your garden to the skies and to experience the satisfaction of growing wonderful food that bursts in your mouth with flavor, that's filled with nutrients, that feeds you and your family. And hey, I hope you can even grow so much that you can help feed your neighbors and your community and build lasting relationships through the food that you grow out of your garden as well. So for a limited time, you get the 7 days absolutely free to check it out. Just click the link on this page or visit borntogrownet.net/join. And you get that 7-day free trial. That's whether you sign up monthly or yearly. And if you choose to sign up yearly, you get that discount as well. Plus, those fast action takers who sign up during this class period, you're going to get that fast action bonus of our garden launch workshop as well. So, hey, you know, I don't know where you're coming from. Maybe you're like Jan, who had never gardened before, and you want to experience your first harvest ever and the satisfaction of growing your own food. Or maybe you're like Larry, who has been gardening, you know, practically all her life, and yet you want to take your garden to the next level. You want to learn even more. You want to have an even more satisfying experience and have a huge bountiful harvest like you can see in the picture here from Larry. Whatever your case is, I want you to experience what Roy Kim did, where he said there was a very noticeable difference in the amount of fruitage this year compared to last year. That's our goal. We're here for you to help you take your garden to the next level. And so we invite you to come join us, come join our family, our gardening family, and take your garden to the skies and experience that satisfaction of growing an abundant harvest that feeds you and your family. And hey, I want to thank you for joining this gardening class and sticking with us to the end here. It shows your commitment to your garden. And like I promised at the beginning, we've got that special bonus for those of you that stayed to the end. You're going to find it over at the same page where you would sign up for our pro membership here. So if you click the link on this page to go over like you would if you were signing up and scroll down to the very bottom of that page, there's a link down at the bottom like you can see here. If you click on that, you'll get your special 14-day microgreens challenge absolutely free for you as a special thank you for sticking to the end. It shows your commitment to the garden, your excitement about what you're learning, and so we want to give you that as your little bonus. We want to see you succeed in your garden. So thanks again, and hey everyone, take what you've learned from this class and go implement it in your garden. Put it to use, take the training and the tools and the techniques that you've learned, and come join our gardening family. Once again, it's limited. For a limited time, you get 7 days free. Just click the link on this page or go to borntogrownet.net/join. Come on inside. We will welcome you with open arms. We're excited to have you, and come join the best gardening family in the entire world. I can't wait to see you on the other side, and you could be our next gardening success story. So keep gardening strong, and we'll be in touch, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.